Hello and welcome to another live conversation on the Proceed with Passion Q&A. I am your host, Terry Schilling, and my guest today is Brendan Hufford, really an SEO, I don't know, is it specialist, the guru? That's probably overused, man.
No
But all
ninja,
around good guy, Brendan.
no ninja, no rock star.
None of those buzzwords, right? SEO rock star. Yeah, I get that a lot. I need a copywriting rock star. I'm like, all right, let's take it easy a little bit here. But yeah, Brendan, I'm so happy to have you on. Guys, everybody watching, in these Proceed with Passions, I bring on people who are really, really good at what they do, right? But we hear about their story and how they got to where they are now, and then they chime in with some actionable advice for everybody listening. So to people watching in the Facebook Copy Co-op group and watching the replay, hello, and same on YouTube. Hello, we got a couple people watching. But Brendan, man, thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah, for sure, Terry. I really appreciate it. Any chance I have to be helpful for other people, I'm 100% down.
Yeah, I love it. Let's start with an easy one, man. How's quarantine been for you? What are some of the highlights, if you will?
I mean,
positive.
Yeah, let's be like real honest. So I'm gonna hedge a little bit on your question.
Okay.
It's great. It's great. My family's healthy. Yeah. Everybody's fine. I have a job. I have projects outside of work that make me plenty of money. Yeah. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
Now, I think we all have that feeling. Now, the problem is you end up feeling bad that you still feel bad. Like I'm so blessed, but I still am all messed up a lot of days.
Yeah.
Whether it's quarantine, whether it's, seeing how many people have died from COVID, whether it's seeing the horrific injustices in this country, gratefully brought to light more than they have been in my lifetime, but still having to witness them and watch them constantly.
Yeah.
And seeing my friends live them day in and day out.
Yeah.
Like that's difficult. It's not as difficult as the people experiencing it firsthand. But if we can tell the anecdotal story that everybody can relate to, this is my home office.
Yeah,
I was here in my current position. I'm leadership of a team at an agency, and it's a remote leadership position. So I would stand here doing this all day, and that started in January. And then in about February, March, I literally, Terry, I was riding in the van. My kids were in the back seat. It was not my proudest moment. I just kind of had like a little meltdown with my wife. We did that thing where you turn the music up a little louder and you turn it, the speakers are louder in the back of the car. And I was just like, I'm freaking out. I can't do this. I can't just stand in that office every single day anymore. Like I'm losing my mind. Cause like I work out over there and I sleep there and I eat over there. And
it's just so hard. It's so hard to balance the environments.
But Terry, that was February. Yeah. Like that was pre-quarantine. So I got a gym membership. I started looking at co-working spaces.
Yeah.
And, most of the world at that time was like, LOL, pandemic. Yeah, right. So I went to the gym twice and they shut the gym down. And it was like, they were really proactive. This was early, right? Yeah. But I was still like, I just feel like I was like, I got to get out of here. And my wife was like, do it. And then I got out for like 1 minute and COVID was like, get back in your office, bro.
Now you're back inside. Yeah.
I'm back right here. And I've been here the whole time.
Yeah. So it's definitely, and it's an adjustment. And I can relate into the sense that I have a small condo here in the city of Chicago. And so, my wife and I working and balancing those schedules. And like, even when the weather got nicer, I could go outside a little bit more on our patio. But then it was just like, all right, we're working on top of each other. We're having to balance, I have a call, I'm doing an interview, you're doing this. It was tough. And we didn't really have a designated office space. So we actually recently got a co-working space, like a private office nearby, but I think it was just like the necessary investment. And kind of touch back, it's like super grateful that even like I do have the job, you do have the resources to, afford this in this case, to like have that option right now. So
totally. And I have 3 kids at home right now. And it's just like, hey man, like it's a lot. And it's a lot that like, I come, and we might be able to talk about my story a little bit, but like I come from an education background. I was a teacher and an assistant principal for a decade. And I understand now as a parent, like the role that schools really serve in our society. Like I feel okay saying it, like it's state funded babysitting, and that like listening to people talk about why they want schools to reopen which I don't find to be a political issue. It's a public health issue.
Right.
Is most of them are like, it's really hard having my kids at home and I want my kids to play sports. And I'm like, that is the thing that schools do for most people, right?
Yeah.
We say it's about education. Right. It's really not. So yeah, I mean, we're wrestling with that. And then on top of it too, is just doing it's client work, right? So I'm feeling I'm a big feeler. I feel emotions very deeply.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's some like Enneagram or some like personality profile that I'm supposed to fit in for that. But I feel a lot of feelings. And when clients are going through it and you can tell they're hurting, then I'm hurting, it's challenging for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, man, it definitely is. And, I guess we can jump right into the big part of the interview and what we do here. Is talking about more of your history and where you came from, because you did mention that you were an assistant principal and you ended up getting your master's degree in education, leadership, and administration. Assistant principal in Gary, Indiana. I want to start there because that's one of your early, career, educational, stops, if you will. What was, what memory for that is in like 4K high definition for you?
So I think first is, looking back, there's this great quote by Steve Jobs that I'll butcher of just like, you can connect all the dots looking backwards. Yeah. But you can never have seen them going forwards. And I just see this like grit and hustle and like this, the phrase like anti-fragile is good, right? Like I do better under adversity. Like when things get really difficult is when I actually shine the most. Yeah. I don't think I always handle everything the best, but like I tend to do really well. And I remember I went to school to be a teacher because we let 18-year-olds decide what they want to do with their lives. So silly. Right? Why? I don't trust an 18-year-old to like house sit my house, but apparently you can take on like $100,000 in college debt and we trust you with it.
Yeah.
Well, so I went to school to be a teacher in New York, came out here, to Indiana, Northwest Indiana, Chicago area. It was just like trying to figure things out. And I ended up getting a job. I was actually in Chicago at a job fair at Navy Pier, literally the end of the day. Like, we don't have an hour, but like I was scrapping for anything. I was trying to get my emergency certificate in special ed because nobody told me that they were like, the world needs teachers. And I got out of college and they're like, oh, you're a history teacher? We don't need those. And I'm like, oh, cool. Thanks, guys. Where were you 4 years ago? So I was just scrapping. I was literally walking around at the end of the day as everybody was packing up their booths at this teacher fair, just like throwing resumes on the top of stacks. Boom, boom, boom. And I walked by this one and I just said, hey, do you mind if I put this in here? They said, no, of course. I set it in there. They're like, oh, you're from Indiana? And I was like, yes, I am. And they were like, we actually have a charter school in Indiana. And I was like, that's crazy. They're like, you should come in for an interview. I was like, I should. So I went in and that's where I got started teaching. And everybody was like, hey, you're like the best teacher. You should go to school for administration. And my wife's family is all teachers. So they were going to school. Okay. So for administration, I was like in grad school with her brother, with my brother-in-law, who's awesome. And, became a principal and then realized, nobody told me this, Terry, apparently managing the people who do the thing is different than doing the thing.
Yeah.
What's wrong with me? Like, that's the second point in my career where I was like, nobody told me. And it's like, it shows you how much you need mentorship, but you also probably should ask questions a little more. Right.
Yeah. I'm sure it's a whole nother like dose of communication skills and adjusting that, of teaching adults in a way, how are you molding their minds to mold other minds? It's interesting.
And I was 25, or whatever. I was 20, 26, 20. I don't know how old I was.
Gosh.
No, I do. Because it was when my oldest son was born, so it was 2000. Yeah, I was like 28 or something. But still, I had no business being an assistant principal. Like, I only had a couple years of teaching experience, and I was supposed to lead people who had been teaching for 26 years. Yeah. They'd been teaching since like a year or two after I was born. So it was just a little silly, and I didn't have any guidance for me. Nobody was telling me what to do. So I was like, when you're a teacher, you get so siloed, you don't realize what everybody else is doing. That's like one of the perils of leadership is you got to like pull back the, look under the rocks, as Jim Collins would say, and like see what's under there. And, I would see teachers just like showing random movies and just like screwing around really bad, or just, we had a teacher just not show up for 3 days. And we were like, are they coming back? What happened? You asked like what the biggest one is. And, I want to share 2 memories because I want to balance it. Number one, Gary, Indiana, and I was taught on the south side of Chicago.
Yeah, it's different. It's a different world. You can't go around it. There's no other way to say it. It's a whole different world. It's different
in some ways. In other ways, it's so frustrating because a small group of people ruin like everything for everybody else. A lot of people don't know the reality of
That's a good point.
Of Gary, Indiana, right? Like Gary, Indiana gets a bad rap nationally because there's a very high murder rate per capita.
Yeah.
If you go to Gary, you will see it looks like an abandoned town because it is. Everybody,
so many people like take the Skyway and they'll get lost and kind of drive around, and it really, it just seems like everything you're told about Gary, it just comes to life in that moment for you. And then, but I'm sure you have a whole different experience.
Working with, I was there for 8 years.
Yeah.
And, I saw the community and I went to all the football games, and I was a strength and conditioning coach for our state champion basketball team and our football team and all these different, like, we didn't even have a football field. We didn't even have equipment for the first year, and we were still competitive. Like, it was a blessing. And I got to be a part of a community that I think a lot of people have written off. That's awesome. It developed an underdog, like, pissed off kind of mentality in me of like wanting more for myself, wanting more for those kids, like all of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that was wonderful. And there was also like difficult stuff. Like I got punched in the face by a kid, and like, there's just other stuff, but it's like, I was also 25 and was doing a lot of MMA and Brazilian jiu-jitsu and probably said something crazy to him, know, because I wasn't a punk. So looking back, I probably did deserve, like, maybe don't hit your assistant principal in the face, but maybe deserved it. So I don't know, things like that happen, but even working on the south side and stuff, like it was wonderful, and I wouldn't trade it for anything because I got to experience a culture and 2 communities that I would have never been able to otherwise. Or not never, but it may have been more challenging to be embedded like that. And I still think it's a huge blessing in my life. Yeah.
And I know, being like right around Chicago, you said then you were doing some work there near the south side, or in the south side. Mm-hmm. And then I see here, according to your LinkedIn here, Brendan, a digital marketing instructor at University of Chicago, one of the most prestigious universities in the country, in the Midwest, for sure. How did you go then to going into digital marketing from that perspective? Teaching jiu-jitsu, assistant principal in Gary, Indiana. What made the shift to digital marketing?
It was it's one of those things where you hear people say like you're throwing it away, and it's so silly. You keep all your experiences, you keep all your skills. The reason I'm able to talk to you like a regular human and be excited and passionate is because I had to be passionate in front of 30, 14-year-olds for 8 hours a day for 10 years who didn't give a crap about what I was saying. And I had to be the show. I had to be exciting. And I think there was already an element of me in that. But when your nature and your nurture kind of align, like it's so beautiful. So don't throw anything away. I was the teaching at University of Chicago, which went on for a few years, was very much a byproduct of one of my friends telling me, hey, you should, I came up in online marketing, which is different than digital. Online marketing is like hate your job, make a podcast about podcasting, and do webinars about webinars, and Facebook ads about running Facebook ads. You know what I'm talking about? Like become a guru for stuff. That's why I push back against that so hard.
Got it.
Like, or those SEO sites where if you Google backlinks or something, and you're like, oh, these guys must be great at SEO. And then you realize like, they've never had a successful SEO project other than the project where they try to convince you they're really good at SEO. I didn't want to be in that. And I came up in that world, and one of my buddies was like, you should just go see about working at an agency. And I was like, oh, you mean I could just like align my life? I didn't have to like pretend I cared about curriculum maps and lesson plans, but really I cared about like, header tags and stuff or what, you know, a content strategy.
Right.
And so I was asked to join the team at Click Studios in Chicago, and there I met Brent Williams, who is a wonderful human, who no longer works at Click either, but he's really cool. People should connect with him on LinkedIn. He's one of the best people I've ever met in my whole life.
Yeah.
He was just like, hey, we're teaching this course. We have an SEO section. You're the SEO guy in the company, and you were a teacher for 10 years. I think this would be great for you. And I was like, I think so too. So we went and did that for a little bit, and it was really cool.
That's
It was
awesome.
great. It was great training for what I do now with SEO for the rest of us, you know, like teaching what I know.
Yeah.
Because I had to try it live for a while. And I think that's the best way to, you know, if you're going to make a digital product or anything, like teach it live a bunch of times. You'll figure out what needs to be in there and what doesn't.
Yeah. No, that's so cool. And then you mentioned SEO for the rest of us. So kind of in this time frame, we're looking at about like 2017, so just a couple years ago, which seems like an eternity now. But SEO for the rest of us. And Brendan, I love, if you guys watching, go to his site. Brendan, it's brendanhufford.com is your site, but it is the SEO for the rest of us. I just wish somebody would explain SEO in terms the rest of us could understand. And it's just like, you touched on this, you're taking this human element. I feel like you've taken your experience of dealing with human emotions and teaching people and making it more approachable this way. Something that has been so technical in the marketing world, this SEO, this keyword, let's rank high, let's gain traffic. And now you created SEO for the rest of us. You know, what's really sparked you to do that?
Yeah. So a couple things. Number one, I was at Click and I was interviewing people to grow our team.
Yeah.
And I was looking for resource. You know, I was looking for people. I was interviewing people, and I would always ask, like, where do you learn from?
Yeah.
And the same answers kept coming up.
Okay.
And they were the same people that I just kind of pushed back against, the gurus. And I was just like, they don't know, like they don't do that. It's a weird, they operate in a different part of the SEO world, right? It's a very weird niche, SEO about SEO. And I was just like, yeah, I don't know about that. And then, you know, looking for resources to train my own team. I wasn't really pumped about anything. There's some good videos by, like, you know, Hrefs had become pretty popular by then. And Sam over there had started putting out some really good videos for them. So those are great resources. Those are made by like some real practitioners. They're also really good videos. The rest, if you go on YouTube, most of the videos you find about SEO are like watching a wet blanket talk to you. It's awful. Whereas Sam's videos are the best. Like, I aspire to one day be as good as Sam. So, you know, I wasn't thrilled with the resources, as you can tell, and I'm being long-winded about it. So I just was like, I'll make my own. Like, I came up in, like, my whole life has been DIY. Yeah. Right. Like, I don't know how to make this work. So I'm just going to hustle. I'm going to figure it out. It's how I got the teaching job. It's how I became an assistant principal. Like, I just figured it out. It's how I got the job at Click. So I started SEO for the rest of us, and it started as just like a newsletter. And then people were just asking more and more specific questions. And I built a couple businesses on the side, some online businesses, and sold them in like 2016. I mean, when you say, my friends who are like tech founders, they're like, you need to start referring to it as like you had an exit. Yeah. And I'm like, I didn't have an exit. Like, we put tile in the bathroom with that money. Like, it was not actual like real money. Yeah. I'm not you know, Zuckerberg over here. So like, anyways, you know, sold those, but learned by doing, just by brute force. And then, started SEO for the rest of us, and just, it was a newsletter, and it kind of has just become this online community. And I'll be honest with you, I'm doing the same thing right now with my current team. A lot of our clients use Drift. Have you ever seen Drift on a website? Yeah. Just the cool kind of conversational marketing chatbot in the corner. Yeah. No good courses on Drift. None. So I'm making it. Like, I'll just make it and then sell it to people who need it. And it just makes sense, right? So, that's kind of the ethos around it for sure. Yeah, we had just a comment come in from Vanessa in the group. Hustle and figure it out, the motto for the rest of 2020. And just a good motto to have in general. It's just like, you've taken something, you know, that's, you know, put out there, the resources weren't good, and you're like, I'm going to do this one thing like as well as I can.
right? And just make it more approachable for everybody. And then there you go, SEO for the rest of us. It's turned into this huge community for you, which I want to chime in on a little bit later. But then I was looking at, some of your, accomplishments even at Click Studios, and now you moved on to the director of SEO at Directive. So that's kind of your new gig, and that started in January 2020. You touched on in the beginning of how you started remotely, and now you tried to get out, and now you're back at home. But a lot of increase in traffic, tremendous growth for both companies. What was, what were some of the biggest, things that you learned that were new about SEO during this time? Like maybe, because you go in knowing what you know, but what are some things that you've taken away? Like, oh wow.
I think the biggest thing. Sorry, there's some. Can we jump back to Vanessa real quick?
Yes,
because I really appreciate you watching, Vanessa. You're the best.
Yeah, you put the back up there. Yeah,
I have this tattoo on the inside of my forearm that's it might be backwards, but it says Amor Fati. I have Memento Mori on the inside of this forearm. This is a half-finished tattoo because COVID. Like I can't go get it finished right now. But Amor Fati literally comes from this book, The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday, which faces out for like that is camera facing for a reason. Like every time he calls, I see it. It just means a love of fate, right? Like that is sometimes the only choice that you have is just to choose to love the crap that you're in and literally like the hustle and figure it out. Like this is just a better stoic philosophical way of putting it. But like, this is my fate. The one thing that can't be taken from me is my choice. To love my fate, no matter what it is. I've written about it for Ryan Holiday's website, Daily Stoic. Even when like really tragic stuff has happened in my life, like that's when the rubber meets the road. It's been really hard, but you still do have that choice. I wanted to address it really quickly because I think it's just such a cool point. So
absolutely. I appreciate that. It was really well said.
Yeah, for sure. And then I think on the SEO side of things, the biggest thing I learned, I can give tactics in a second, but I was just talking about this earlier today, is just some humility in that, like a lot of people who sell SEO knowledge or SEO services are going to try to convince you that you need it. Yeah. Really don't. Like a lot of people say you should do SEO, you should do these things. Like don't get shoulded into anything. Like I work with billion-dollar companies who have never done SEO. And have created technology that powers our whole world. And it's like, just really cool software and hardware, which is primarily the clients I work with now. And it just gives you a bit of humility around like, oh, you can change the world, build these businesses without ever having any idea about the thing that I do. You feel like it's so essential. You feel copy is so essential. And you're like, oh, they built $1 billion company and all this copy is trash. Like,
yes, that's a great point. Yeah.
It just gives you a little bit of sense in your world. And it gives you that humility of like, oh, cool. Like, let's flip that. I can still be a huge value add to billion-dollar companies, even though you would assume they've got what I do locked in. They don't. You can be that thing that takes them from a $10 million company to a $100 million company or whatever. That was really humbling and I loved it. On the tactical side, I came up in the world of SEO where it's like content and links. And I still believe in that for the most part of like what ranks is your content. That's like your car, right? The engine is the website. You have your car. You still got to get some links somehow. That's the gas, right? You're not ever going to rank and get really significant traffic from Google with no links. So you got to figure out how to do that. And I was always the content and links guy. And then I ran into a bunch of clients where we were crushing it with content and links. And they're like, hey man, the leads still aren't good. And the leads aren't good or traffic's still not going up. We've produced 150 articles this quarter. And they're all really good. Like, why isn't traffic going up significantly? And all of a sudden, I realized there was this whole other world of SEO and this whole, other world of like technical skills and different things. And doesn't matter how much content you publish on a website, if their technical side of it is broken, if the canonicals are set up wrong and there's blogs redirecting for no reason and they don't know why, and templates are broken and half the blogs aren't even indexing. And it's like, I think there's something else going on here. And it was really cool learning to be like, all right, I have these core competencies, but there's just so much depth to search marketing and to content that I just didn't know at that time.
Yeah. I talked with a woman yesterday who is in SEO as well. And she's just like, there's one thing to be the content writing and the creator side of it, but it's also beneficial to bring on somebody from that SEO technical side too, to make sure that their website and that, like you said, some of the links, it's all set up from the technical side too, because the content, the good content is part of it in that aspect.
100%. And even just like, it's table stakes at this point. Like, is your website load in under 2 or 3 seconds? Even your blog posts, 6,000 word blog posts, tons of cool images and embeds, and you try to do all this cool stuff with it. Takes 20 seconds to load. It's never going to rank. And most of the people that share it or find it are never going to stay.
Yeah.
So just being able to have a super fast website is pretty crucial.
Yeah. When you're working with some of these bigger companies and they come with you about, hey, we want to get into SEO, because they hear, sometimes people just hear it and be like, oh, we need to do this because everybody else is doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But if they have like really unrealistic goals, like we need to rank for, this word, and it's huge competition unless they have the budget for it. But what would you suggest then? How do you handle those unrealistic, expectations, if you will?
Yeah. I think it's the first part is to understand like how unrealistic it is, right?
Okay.
Like, is this even, if they are hey, we're a brand new startup and we are working on, I don't even know. We're a startup insurance. I'll use this because it's super generic, but like we're a startup insurance company and we want to rank #1 for car insurance. And you're like, you have a brand new website with no links. You want to rank #1 for car insurance.
Yeah.
The play there is let's help you do due diligence to acquire another company. Because you're not like, that's not the play. And it has to be, there has to be more there. And in that case, again, like let's have some humility. Is there a better way for you to go about this? Would paid marketing be better for you?
Yeah.
Right? Should you be running PPC? Should you be running retargeting? Should you be running whatever? If they're enterprise, should you be running like, ads on LinkedIn or something like that?
Yeah.
So I think that's a big part of it, is making sure like SEO is the right strategy for them. Now, if we're sure it's the right strategy for them and they just, let's really isolate the variable, they just have unrealistic goals. I think a big part of it is understanding what that goal is based on. Is it because that would make your CEO feel good to rank #1 for that? Is it because your CEO and CMO need to keep their jobs, so they got to have something cool to show the board of like, hey, go ahead and Google us, you'll find us there. Like those things. I mean, I've never experienced that personally, but I know that stuff happens.
Yeah.
Or is it, we think this will grow the most revenue? And once you get into that understanding, just have a real human conversation with them and get really good. I know in the world of copy, this is where I feel like copy and SEO really overlap. Like the core skill is not actually writing, it's asking really good questions and digging those couple layers deep.
Yeah.
Once you understand what they really want out of that ranking, then we can address that. All right, what are your business goals? Because nobody should come to you and be like, I want to rank for this. That just shows you probably sold it wrong the whole way. If you're selling rankings, you have to sell business goals. That's how you know you're going to be working with the right client. Because if they want rankings, it shows they don't understand how SEO connects to their business. They're going to be a really hard client to work with.
Yeah.
So that sales process has to be a good bit of education.
No, yeah, absolutely. And you touched on it, just like from my copywriting standpoint, it's a question I ask on like discovery calls, is like, what are your business goals in general? Because it gets them to think differently about their business and bigger picture, instead of just coming, like you said, I want my website to make money. It's like, okay, like what else though? Like what are these business goals? How can I best help you with these services? Really like how you phrase that. Because in this group, Brendan, we have a lot of, SEO and content writers too, and they ask a lot about the different tools. How can they best help my client? Maybe tell me some of the best tools, or just how to do like a content strategy on a budget, if you will.
Yeah. Good question. I think a lot of times we think that tools are going to solve things for us or give us some secret sauce we don't already know.
Yeah.
And I think there's some value to refining like some keyword targeting on stuff. If you notice, like let's just say you Google a couple things, or this is the number one thing that people don't do. They're like, I want to do SEO, and then they just don't start Googling a bunch of stuff. Just Google all the things you want to rank for, and you'll start to get like, even people that do this professionally and get paid a lot of money to do it.
Yeah.
Won't spend enough time like just Googling things and seeing what it even looks like.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely the start. I know that sounds rudimentary, but again, people will think to skip that and jump into a tool.
Yeah.
In terms of content strategy, I'll give you like the fastest way that I go about it.
Yeah.
That's basically free. Is hop into I think it's Answer the Public.
Yeah.
Drop like your core thing you want to research there, and you can do this a couple times a day. I think they limit it to like 2 or 3 searches per day in there without a paid subscription. Yeah. Go in there, put in your country, wherever you're at, pull that big list, and then Google all of those terms. Pay for. I don't believe in any free keyword research tools. There's nothing out there good that is free.
Okay.
The reason is Keywords Everywhere used to be free, but so many people were building tools on top of it and like spamming it with requests that they're like, we just need to charge $1. We need to charge you $1 because the people who are spamming us, that'll cost them 10 grand.
Yeah.
A reasonable human, it costs about $1 a month. So pay them their $1, use Keywords Everywhere. But when you drop it in there, it'll give you kind of like, here's what the top terms are. It's not great for deep keyword research, but it'll give you like, hey, Answer the Public said this. Here's some rough volume around that. I don't believe that like volume and keyword difficulty makes a content strategy. That's what most people do. Yeah. Like, whatever's the highest volume and the lowest difficulty, and we'll just sort those 2 columns, and then that's our content. False. I think the biggest thing, so do that. Get your kind of like list. And then see, like, do we, I don't know how much everybody in the group is familiar with Eugene Schwartz's breakthrough advertising, but that's how I think about content is based on like a product awareness, right? Are they completely unaware? Are they problem aware? Are they like product aware? Are they, aware, or solution aware, and product aware? Yeah. And then all of a sudden you start bucketing those things and you realize like, all right, in my content strategy, am I addressing these things? Am I pulling people in that, don't even know they have a problem? Am I pulling people in that know they have a problem, but don't know what solution is best? What about people that know that my kind of solution is best? What about people who actually know of my product? And if you're just starting out, nobody knows of your product, so you don't have to worry about that. But like, make sure you're hitting we call them like top of funnel, bottom of funnel. I think it's kind of a weak way of quantifying things, but like pull in those bottom of funnel pieces. Like a lot of times you can find some cool long tail stuff in there. So I think it's a little bit all over the place, but I think that's the best way to start. Yeah. If you have access to Ahrefs or something, and you can do this with a $7 for 7-day trial. I think they still have that. Yeah. Just take that export from Answer the Public, drop it into their keyword, to just literally copy and paste that column into there. I was just doing it this morning to find some interesting stuff. Then that gives you a starting point, right? Then you can pull up, like Google some of those big terms, see the sites that actually rank for those, drop those into Ahrefs, see what other stuff they've made. And I think that gives you a good start, but it is honestly, Terry, only a start, because really what ends up happening is just more like garbage copycat content. Yeah. It's like, here's what I see ranking, skyscraper, make it 5% better. And it's like the weakest, you Google, everybody that's watching this or listening, like you've Googled something and the first 4 results all say the same, just like vapid, like thin, like, have you ever been wondering? Yeah, I Googled this. Like, that's why I've been wondering about it. Put the keyword in your first sentence. Like, I get it. It's awful. Like, please stop. So, when you see that copycat content, like the biggest thing, if you want to rank, you got to have a take. You got to have something to say. Yes. And I think when people get to that, even if you're ranking 5th or whatever, when they get somewhere, I mean, you've read those blog posts where like, that's why Mark Manson has made a whole career out of like, I don't even know what he writes about if you were to try and quantify it, but I got all of his books right here. And like, it's just because he has a strong take and is good at expressing it. And I think no matter what you're going to write about, the biggest thing in any content strategy is like, what is my take on this? Spend some time in that question. What is different? What could be better? What do I, if you're like me and you feed off of rage for some reason, like, be like, what sucks about this? What do I hate about what currently comes up when people Google, and then go the opposite direction,
Yeah. It just even to like, you just like can use like a psychological trigger, just like curiosity, do something unexpected when you get them to read the article and click on it. I love that, the take, because it's really just the quality of content too. Like, it needs to be good. It's like you can have all these tools in your, in your toolbox, right? But I think the content still has to hit. And I love how you, phrase that, have a take on it, be original with it as well.
Yeah. Trying to make somebody chuckle in the first like minute of reading your thing.
Yeah.
I use a lot of GIFs, slows down my pages. I don't care. I do everything I can to keep them fast because SEO and conversions or whatever. But I want people to do that that internet laugh, like where you're looking at something and it's not really a laugh, you just kind of breathe out of your nose a little bit. I want them to do the internet laugh within a minute or two of like somewhere in there. I've got to get them to do that.
Yeah. What's your quick take then on like the H1 headings or the titles of like an article that you're you on the first page for that phrase or that keyword? Are you like really keeping like what is, how is, what are some things that you do to kind of make that stand out? Like do you get creative, or do you deviate and just stick to what the volume's telling you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you lead with what they want, sell them what they want, and then give them what they need.
Okay.
You can do that in a title. If you want to study titles, look up your topic on YouTube and look at the ones that come up the most. Now, there might be some, this happens in SEO too, where like the bigger brands, the more authoritative ones tend to come up first. It happens for different reasons. It happens in YouTube because people recognize a brand or a person in a thumbnail and they click it the most, and that pushes it up.
Yeah.
But look at the thumbnails, look at the titles. Those are earning clicks like crazy because it's much more of a meritocracy on YouTube. That'll give you some really cool research. And I love doing the like, if you're doing like how-to content or whatever, like how-to without like this other thing, right? Like how to create SEO content without selling your soul and, or whatever. I think that's how to get backlinks without begging for them over email. Like that sort of stuff. It's like, oh my God, I do send out those horrible outreach emails. I don't want to do that anymore. Click, right? You immediately know it's for you because they know your pain point.
Yeah, no, that's so great. And I mean, you can even go to like stuff like BuzzFeed and look up clickbait headlines to get some inspiration, because it's a reason why they work so well. And like, I've noticed like the how-to formula for some of the videos I do get like the most traffic from what I've seen, because it's just such a simple formula. We go to the internet to find solutions, like sometimes entertainment, of course, but we go to figure something out. So it's like how to, and then like you said, without, and you address a pain point. Yeah.
If you're going to be entertained, that's just, it's good on you. Different business model, right? If you want to make money from it. Yeah. But I think, I've never been to like Barstool Sports and been like, I would like to buy a course from them or something.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
But I think like content can do all of those things. It can educate, empower, entertain, all of that sort of stuff. But I also think that really earning that click, and also especially for written content, a lot of times people just use like a crappy unsplash image. Look at YouTube, look at BuzzFeed. Like they've split test 100 images. The top YouTube videos have probably gone through 4 or 5 images over the years because they got to keep earning those clicks. And if it gets stale, people stop coming. Like, look at what's in there. Treat your written content, like earn it with the thumbnail, right? When people get there, put words in your thumbnail that like make people, maybe it doesn't fit in the title or it's kind of weird or whatever. But as soon as they see it, they click through to the page, they see it. They're like, oof, I'm home. This is my person, right? I want to learn this from them. So.
Definitely don't underestimate the YouTube thumbnail. I learned that when I first started creating YouTube videos. It's like, all right, these need to have something different on them. And like you said, just have some words that stand out. It's like, because like you said, it's what you see when you search. Like, look at what everybody else is doing. There's a reason that it's working at the end of the day. Brendan, I want to touch on this because we talked about SEO for the rest of us, your newsletter, and just growing this community. I'm curious, how many subscribers do you have roughly to that?
So the newsletter is I think like 2,400 people.
24 people.
I've also deleted hundreds of people off of it.
Okay.
Just because newsletter subscribers, I believe they're an expense.
Okay.
Kind of like electricity or anything else. Like if you're paying for it, you should use it. It's the same reason I don't keep my front door open while the air conditioning's on. I'm not going to keep paying for you to sit on my newsletter and pay for you every single month when you haven't opened an email in 4 months, right?
Yeah.
I'll send you an email that says, hey, it's got a hilarious Ryan Gosling gif where he's like, don't go. And I feel bad for the people that are like, oh, I have, some protection. So it says I've never opened these, but I open all of them. And I'm like, that sucks. I don't know. I just don't want to keep all these people hanging out. You know what I mean? Like I gotta figure out a way around that, but that's an edge case. Like for the most part, I prune that as much as I can. So it's about 2,400 or whatever I said. I don't know. This is terrible. I'm like the SEO person. I don't look at my traffic. I don't look at like my email subscribers very much. I see it when I go in to write an email, and that's about it. Yeah,
but you can judge it just from like, I'm sure the engagement and the interaction. So like those 2,400 people roughly, a lot of them, that, they're fans more or less. Like you're adding value to them, and you feel that. And so, Brendan, I'm just curious then, in all your time then, and all of these experiences that you've done, and now you've created this newsletter, what's your best advice to growing a community through this? Just for people and being like, should I start an email list? It's like, yes, you probably should, but like, what are what's your best advice to grow that into a community?
Yeah. So like to your point, it is pretty engaged, right? I get like 40 or 50% open rates on a lot of emails, depending on how good my headline is. And I also, when I say like, hey, I want to answer your SEO questions, I said recently, cause I was launching like my paid community off of it, send me, this is good, like just copy research. What's your biggest pain point? This will be really tactical and really helpful for people working on copy specifically. What are you struggling with the most? They replied. And I promised them, I said, I'll send a video reply to you if you just reply to this email with this.
Yeah, I remember seeing this. Yeah.
Yep. What are you struggling with the most? Then once they told me what's struggling with the most, I said something to the effect of, do you think that's held you back from learning SEO? They said yes or no. I was like, all right, cool. I'm going to make this video for you. But one last question. What do you think it's cost you by waiting? What does waiting cost you? What do you think you could have made in terms of time, money, freedom in the meantime? Yeah. And now all of a sudden, I have an absolute gold mine of copy because I have quotes from people that are like, yeah, I probably lost $60,000 in my business this year. I could have made an extra 60K in my business this year if I just got over the overwhelm of learning how to build backlinks.
Yeah. And you can use that on a landing page or something, Brendan, like that user generated content.
Use it on the landing page, but it also told me like what to build, right? I didn't realize, Terry, there's a whole section of my audience of people that have questions about client expectations and help with that. And I'm like, oh, I didn't realize there were so many industry people. I thought it was a lot more like people want to learn SEO to build their thing. And they're like, no, I'm your peer in the industry. I need help. So there's all this cool stuff. So had the newsletter. The biggest thing with the newsletter is, again, you have to have something to say. Recently, I tried this thing where I was like, I'm going to put 5 links I love at the bottom. Yeah. And literally, I got 2 replies, and I was at a 0. If I get replies, I was at a 0 to the end because that's how many people are probably thinking it. I learned it's from my teaching days, right? If one kid raises their hand and asks a question, 10 kids probably have that question. Yeah. So 2 replies that were like, I read this because I said like, hey, I'm putting these links at the bottom. What do you think? Let me know. And 2 people replied, and it's not big on the whole, but they were for them to reply and be like, I read this to hear your opinion. Like, I don't care about other people's content. Like, that for me shows the audience that I've built. Because a lot of people build newsletters of like, I don't think there's another SEO newsletter like mine. Where it's like, here's what I think and feel. And if I don't have anything to say, I'm not going to email you this week. Everybody's like, consistency. And it's like, if you don't have anything to say, don't put some crap out, So most newsletters are like, hey, here's 50 links from the SEO world this week. And it's like, God, we don't need more tabs open. Like, nobody needs that.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
I know some people do it with great effect because they're really good curators, right? Yeah. Tim
and
Ferriss,
they built that
Friday.
Yeah.
Huh?
And I was just saying they've built that trust. So if I'm sharing you something, it's like, oh, well, if it's good enough for him, it's got to be good enough for me.
A lot of people use it as a growth tactic, though. They're like, hey,
yeah,
people I'm sharing you in my newsletter want to share my newsletter with your audience. And it's like, ugh. And people, they see it and they read it a couple times, and then they either never open it again and it goes to the promo folder, or they unsubscribe. And it's like, you can't build a business off of here's a bunch of links.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, maybe you can get sponsorships and stuff, but
yeah,
I don't know. I don't want to just be sharing other people's stuff. Let's bring this conversation full circle. I started this. I made my 100 Days of SEO project, SEO for the Rest of Us. All these things are built because it was something that didn't exist in the world, and I had something to say.
Yeah.
And I think that if all your, like, by all means, start by curating, right? I started the Entrepreneurs and Coffee podcast because I wanted to curate other people's stories and things.
Yeah.
But at some point, you gotta get in the driver's seat.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, a big thing that I did with creating the group and I'm like done in my newsletter is ask questions. And, you know, like you said, when you ask them, what's that cost you for not learning SEO? You got a gold mine. And it's so true. And like, you can even do that. You can even go on like Reddit and other Facebook groups yourself and see what problems people are talking about and use that for yourself instead of just maybe necessarily directly asking questions. But if that's your audience, then build your newsletter and have something to say about that. But like it goes back to what you said, have that original take as well.
Yeah, I love going on Amazon and reading like 3-star reviews for books on different topics. Yeah, just because it's usually a more reasonable review with like a legitimate issue. Like I liked it enough to leave a review, but I don't think it deserves 5, and here's why. And you're like, oh, that's like a pain point. The popular book on productivity didn't address this pain point. Like, I should probably talk about that, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Brendan, got a couple more questions here as we wrap this up. I always ask everybody this question on here. What are your favorite and go-to tools that you use every day to run your business?
Oh, to run my business. So I'm in the process of like moving from a few tools. It's very painful because I've got a bunch of stuff built in MailChimp. Don't want to use MailChimp anymore.
Okay.
Excited to go over. Going to probably start using like ConvertKit or something. Big fan of Drift. Use it on my site. There's a free version if you just want to like start engaging with people a little bit better. You can do that. There's if you use WordPress, my buddy Joey built a really cool plugin so you can make it load lightning fast. It's pretty clever how it loads because Drift will slow your site down. That's like the biggest gripe about it, but this makes it instantaneous. Which is really cool. So what are we talking about? Email us. I host all my sites with Flywheel. Love them.
I'm taking notes here too.
I know I'm going to leave somebody out that I love, and I'm going to feel like such a punk. I use Ahrefs. Obviously, I mentioned them. Answer the Public. I use. I've started playing around with my hey.com email address. I found to be, so much hype. Love Basecamp, Chicago company and stuff. I've been to their office.
It's such a good idea, but like, how is it now? I feel like you don't hear about it much anymore.
It was everybody for a minute there on Twitter, and then it's nobody. But I've been playing around with it. I think it's cool. I'm excited for them to roll out. The reason it's not sticky for me is I'm in my calendar so much.
Yeah.
So I'm in my Google Calendar constantly. Yeah. And it's not synced up yet. So I have to constantly bounce back. And because I'm in the Google Calendar, I just bounce back into Gmail.
Yeah.
So that's problematic. I'm trying to think. I'll forever leave some. Let me just see what I have on the toolbar on the side. Other SEO tools like Screaming Frog. I use Slack. I use Loom. I've been playing around with Cloud App lately, which is kind of cool. Canva for graphics because I'm bad at it, so it's helpful.
Okay. Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. A ton that I use. I've been starting using some different ones like Draftium with copywriting and just doing things on like creating like templates and wireframes for clients, Cloud App for screen recordings. But I always love learning some new tools.
Let's add Podia in there. I use Podia for everything related to membership and online courses. I used to use Teachery. Definitely highlight them. They're fantastic too. I just needed a membership thing. And Teachery didn't have that. It's wonderful for online courses and digital products. Podia, I've gotten to know their team really well. They're wonderful. The product is great. So I also prefer it to a Patreon because I've I don't know. I just feel like Patreon's really predatory because they take a percentage of your sales and it never goes away.
So Podia is similar to Patreon in that aspect?
Similar in that better functionality, flat monthly fee.
Okay.
And the biggest package they have is like $80 a month. That might sound like a lot, but when you realize that, like, if you get 100 people to pay you $50 a month,
yeah,
it's going to cost you $80. But on Patreon, that would cost you whatever 8% of $5,000.
And then Teatree, is that kind of like a Teachable, just another platform to use, except you create some courses and digital products?
Yep. Yeah.
Cool.
Teacher is created by Jason Zook. It's where I've been friends with him for a long time.
Yeah.
I just had access to it, so I used it and found it to be really nice and quite lovely, and just very intuitive.
Yeah, nice. All right, then final 2-part question, Brendan. Are you more of a burrito or pizza person?
Yeah, I mean, I love pizza for the volume because my brain is wired for, like, if one, it's the reason I don't drink. Like, if one is good, 20 is better.
Okay.
With pizza, like, it's totally cool to sit down with a couple slices of pizza and then go back and get a couple more slices. I feel like if you get 2 burritos, people are like, that's a lot, man. Yeah, it's a power move. But you can sneak in multiple slices of pizza. But if you came back and people were like, is that your 3rd burrito? But in terms of, like, not stuffing my face and feeling, not eating so much that I hate myself, definitely burrito.
Definitely burrito. Wow, what an analytical answer to this. I love it.
It's a lot about food.
Yeah. Well, I asked this question because I want then you to think about everything that you talk about today, all your experiences, and I want you to make a success burrito. And I want you to tell me, what are your 3 key ingredients in that success burrito? So what are those characteristics?
Yeah. So I'm going to go, like, super personal in this. Like, in terms of regular burrito, like, it's got to be the bet. Like, I promise that we're going somewhere with this.
Okay.
The tortilla's got to be great. Like, can't be dried out. It's got to be amazing. Yeah. I'm a big salsa, not fanatic, like, judge. Like, if you have, if you sell burritos and your salsa sucks, like, we're not cool. And the meat's got to be great. I'm partial to chorizo, but you can't overdo it. If it's too much and it's just a grease ball. Anyways, so what is in mine? I think the biggest thing is, for me, I have to, like, my success depends on my ability to believe there's something bigger than myself. Like, for me, that's God. I'm not trying to push my beliefs on anybody else, but, like, that's really crucial for me. I don't think I'm anywhere without my, like, very up and down questioning, like, relationship with God. Yeah. Second to that is building, like, a support network, which has changed over time. Whether that's my mastermind group or my close friends, or whatever else, like, having them around me. Yeah. And then it's, I would say, investing, like, understanding that an investment in yourself will always pay off long term. And that could be everything, right? That's the, like, hundreds of books on this shelf. I'm not Ty Lopez. Like, I'm not trying to like Lambo over there.
You're not going to push a button and your garage opens and you got some Lambos in a pool.
Yeah, no, man. But it's just, I mean, just so people can see, like, it's just, these books, like, this is my favorite author. These are Tim Ferriss books because they changed my life. These are books that, like, I want to remember constantly, so I look at them all day, even though I've read them all. Like, these are books I bought aspirationally and want to read. But, like, investing in yourself, whether that's books or an online course or a community or something, like, investing in yourself in, like, sleep, like, buying darker curtains so you can sleep at night or whatever. Like,
great point. Yeah.
You don't lose when you invest in yourself. And the problem is that if you don't have those other things, that can look really selfish, right? Being like, I'm going to go for a walk for 30 minutes because I'm freaking out because of the pandemic. Like, I can't leave my house. I'm going to go for a walk every morning for 30 minutes. Like, that looks selfish and crappy to a lot of people, maybe even your spouse. But like, when you have the right people around you, they're like, dude, do you? That's the best. You get it. Good job. Right. Yeah. And I think that's really crucial too.
Yeah. Wow, man. I love it. Yeah. I don't think we've got any of those answers before on this.
Are
So
people usually they make a little more sense? Is it a little more
no,
tactical?
no. Some of the answers are really, I mean, they're all great. You get some repeats, but like the way they explain it though is always different. And how like you get passion, consistency, always be learning, which is kind of like one of your last ones there, just investing in yourself. But yeah, it's always just interesting. Like some of these things that like tie into like, when you think about it, it's like, all right, all these lessons learned. And now it's like, all right, yeah, this is what you should have as part of your success toolkit, really, to like keep going and to get where you want to be. So I always love closing in on that question and then just having some fun with it to see if it's going to be burrito or pizza. And pizza is definitely the leader, but
how dare you, everybody? That is wrong. That is the wrong answer. But I think, man, can I just say one more thing? Like,
yes,
a lot of that success burrito really has to exist for like when things go bad.
Yes,
like things are going to go bad. And like we talked about stoicism, we talked about my faith and all these different family, like all those things.
Yeah.
It really exists for like when things go wrong. It can help you be successful, but you're not going to be like, that line is not a straight line. It's up and down and sometimes goes lower than where you were before. So. Yeah,
no, great. We also had Liz talk about salsa snob for burritos. And like, I'm telling you, I'm the same way. There's a place on Taylor Street in Chicago. It is my favorite burrito in the city. And it's because of the two salsas that they give you. But just in general, it's not greasy. It's a perfect amount of food for burrito. It's great, man. I love
it. Snobby. Terry, we're going to go at some point. We're going to go, if it's 2021, I don't care. We're going to go get that.
Yes, I can't wait, man. Let's do it for sure. And Brendan, that's it, man. That's all we got for the Proceed with Passion Q&A. Thank you so much, man. This was great.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Terry, for having me on. Liz, I think Natalie was who was commenting earlier.
Liz, Vanessa. We had
why did I call you Natalie? Sorry, Vanessa.
We had another. It just said Facebook user. Lord bless you for being a teacher. Just a lot of other agreements too as we were going on. So you definitely gave a lot of great just insight, motivation, inspiration, actionable advice. This was awesome.
Cool. Thanks for having me on, Terry. It's an absolute privilege.
And then before we go, man, let everybody know where they can follow you, anything you want to even promote too. The floor is yours before we send off here.
For sure. I think the biggest thing is I'll pretend it's because I'm good at SEO. It's not. I just have a really unique name. If you Google Brendan Hufford, you can find all the things, right? You will find my YouTube channel, my websites, brendanhufford.com, SEOfortherestofus.org. You'll also probably find learndriftfast.com soon. That'll be up there. But if you're like, hey, I'm an Instagram person, you'll find my it's the best landing page for me because it's like, Lord help me if my name was like Justin Jackson. I don't know if you know Justin Jackson. He's one of my favorite people in like marketing and business. He runs Transistor, the podcast company. But like, he'll never rank for Justin Jackson, right?
No, exactly.
Brendan Hufford all day. You can spell it however you want. It'll get you there. So just Google my name and then you can engage with me wherever, whatever you want to check out.
Yeah, I love it. Awesome. Well, Brendan, again, thank you. Everybody watching, live with us and on the replay, enjoy. This is tons of great advice. Send a reply as well. And Brendan and I too are about to do a Whose Tagline Is It Anyway? So chime in on that real quick too, guys. But Brendan, thanks everybody. Thank you. And we'll see you on the next episode of Proceed with Passion.
Thanks, everybody.